Hello, I'm here.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Yourself?
Good, fine, thanks. Kashif, where are you at school?
At Wistful Boys.
Okay, so are you busy with finance at the moment, or is this just a revision section that you're doing?
I'm just working towards finals, doing revision.
Good, okay. Have you written your prelims already?
Yes, I have.
Good, okay. All right, Kashif, the question that you have is a finance question, and I tried to get as much of it down onto the screen just before presenting, so let's have a look if I've got it right. It was determine how long in years, so we're going to remember that, it takes a value of a motor vehicle to depreciate to 25% of its original value at a rate of 21% per annum, and then you did say that it was on a reducing balance, didn't you?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. All right, so what are we going to do in this particular question is we are going to actually solve for n, aren't we? Because it's time in years, and n is always our time period, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so that's basically what I know, is that I'm going to solve for n, the number of time periods. Okay, let's have a look at your formula. Which formula do you think that you're going to be using here, Kashif?
I think it's future value formula.
Future value formula. Okay, but now is it an annuity? So in other words, are we going to be putting money in every month, a kind of a forced payment? Or is it just one of those ones where this is the value now, what is it going to become? So
Yeah, I think it's one. I know the formula is FV is equal to PV, 1 minus I to the n.
Okay, so that's perfect. So FV is equal to PV, 1 minus I to the n. Okay, I thought that you were talking about FV is equal to, and then the annuity formula where we're putting things in every month. Okay, but you're absolutely correct. All right, let's have a look what we can actually fill in. What is the situation? Is this thing kind of going to, in the future, be 25% of its original value? So do you agree that if its original value was 100,000 or 100 Rand, what is it going to become over time? What does 25% of that mean to you?
Isn't it 0.25?
Okay, so 0.25 is 25%, but let's just say that its value when we started out was 100. What would its value be if it was 25% of the original value? So I think I'm confusing you. Do you agree that it would be, if it started out being 100, it would end up being 25?
25, yeah.
Yeah. So if it started out being 1,000, do you agree it would end up being, what's
250.
250.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we don't actually have a value of the car to substitute in here. We don't know the original value. So in this circumstance, I say, right, the original value is X. Could be anything it wants to be. But what is it going to be in the future? What are we going to let this f of v be?
0.25.
Good. It's going to be 0.25x. So it's 25% of the original. Is that okay? Are you with me so far?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Right. Then what we're going to do in here is, because it's on a reducing balance, you've chosen the right formula. And what are we going to substitute in here for I? Kashif?
0.21.
There we go. All right. And then our n is actually the thing that we're trying to solve for. Okay. Right. Now, our next step, obviously, is to try and get this into a form that we're going to solve for n. So what we need to do is we're going to divide through by this x from the right-hand side. So do you agree that the x's would cancel, and on this side, we would get 0.25 is equal to 1 minus 0.21 to the n. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So what are we going to do next?
Don't take n to the other side.
Okay, how am I going to take n to the other side? Okay, that's complete.
You use logs.
You do. You use logs, but you don't take. What do you mean by take to the other side? Do you mean bring it down in front? Is that what you're meaning by take to the other side? Okay. Let's say I had something like 3 is equal to 2 to the x. How do I solve that, Kashif? What have I got to do to get this x from being kind of levitating in the air? How am I going to get it down onto the ground level to be able to solve for it?
Don't you take it to the other side?
Okay, you're not going to take it to the other side. You're going to log both sides. And because you log both sides, okay, so that's what I'm doing now quickly, is I'm logging my left-hand side. And so I'm also going to log my right-hand side. All right.
Okay.
And now what am I allowed to do with the n because of log laws? What am I allowed to do?
Can't you put it over it?
Over it? Okay. What you can do because of log laws is you can bring the n down in front of this log word. So you are allowed to bring this down in the front. Okay? So if I had something, Kashif, like the log of 2 cubed, I'm now allowed to bring the 3 down in front, and that becomes the same or equivalent as 3 log 2. Okay? So what was floating or levitating before is now coming down onto the ground level, and then I can actually work with it when it's just a coefficient of this term. Okay,
ma'am.
So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say the log of 0.25 is equal to, bring that n down, and so we've got n now multiplied by the log of that number. Okay.
Okay.
Now what are you going to do in order to isolate the n? Because remember, our target is to solve for n. So what are you going to have to do to isolate n? What are you going to have to do to both sides?
Divide it through by... I'm not too sure.
Okay. What would happen if I had 4 is equal to n times 3? How would I solve for n? What would I do to get n isolated or by itself? I would divide through this side by 3 and that side by 3. Okay? So to get rid or to isolate n means I've got to get rid of this. So Kashif, I'm going to divide this side by the log of, and let's work that out. That's going to be 0.79. And then I'm going to divide this also by the log of 0.79. Okay, so all I've done is I've divided through by this factor that n is being multiplied by.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so now this is where unfortunately your brain is not going to be able to do the work for you anymore, because we can't actually determine that. We're going to have to put it into the calculator. Okay? So have you got your calculator ready?
Yes, I do.
Right, so punch in for me the log of 0.25 divided by the log of 0.79. What are you getting?
5.88.
Good. Okay, so you're getting 5.88. Now remember that the question said that they wanted you to work out how long in years.
Yes.
Okay, so this is actually 5.88 years. All right.
Okay.
Now, to you, does 0.88 of a year mean anything? Do you know how long 0.88 of a year is?
No.
No. So in other words, it might be better for us to actually tell them that 0.88 years is the same as how many months. So we need to actually convert it to months, because remember, portions of years is measured in months or days. Okay? So in order to work out how many months this is, we would actually work with the proportion that 0.88 is the same as something out of 12 months. And so you can actually see that if I multiply this by 12, Kashif, and this by 12, if I take 0.88 and times it by 12, it actually tells me 10.56. So this is actually 5 years, 10.5 months.
Okay.
Okay.